The Alberta provincial election is almost here, taking place on May the 29th. Our guest today is Grant Hunter, the incumbent UCP candidate for Taber-Warner. Welcome to Bridge City News. Grant, great to have you on today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. So can you maybe tell us a bit about yourself and why you've decided to run for re-election once again?
Well, like I said, or like I was telling you before, I have run for 2 terms now, so this is 8 years for me. But I'm working on a very important project for Southern Alberta. I've worked on building an agri-food processing corridor between Lethbridge and Medicine Hat. We have 70% of Canada's irrigation land right in Southern Alberta. And our government has recognized the value of that and recognized that we can actually do more. So we've increased the irrigation acres by 230,000 irrigated acres. It's the largest expansion in Alberta history. We're twinning Highway 3 between Taber and Burdett. We're going to actually finish twinning the Highway 3 all the way from BC border to the Saskatchewan border. So there's some big things that are happening in Southern Alberta. We think that as we build this, in fact, we know that when we build this, that agri-food processing companies will come, and the ones that are there already will expand. As you saw, McCain's expanded a $600 million expansion, the largest that they've had in their history, right here in Southern Alberta.
Wow. Okay. In your writing, what are you hearing from with your constituents? What are their biggest issues?
Well, probably the biggest issue that I'm hearing right now is affordability. Inflation has driven up the price of everything, and so this is obviously concerning for everybody, especially for people who are on fixed incomes like senior citizens or people who are on age. This can be a big problem for them.
Yeah, definitely. I would imagine the carbon tax also is still a big concern for many farmers and ranchers in your writing. That's kind of right where you are. So, how would you address that?
Well, we would like to see the carbon tax gone. The premier and many of us have stated that the carbon tax does not help. As you know, across the border in the United States, they don't have a carbon tax. And so we have companies that, like Atlantic Sugar, that they produce sugar and it's a commodity that's sold all over the world. And so they're price takers, not price makers. And so what happens is Atlantic Sugar takes a look across the border and says, why would we still be up here in Canada where we're being punished on a carbon tax? Now, remember that the federal Trudeau government has said they want to increase that carbon tax to $170 a ton. And that is going to be very punitive to our businesses. We think that that the carbon tax should be gone. But if it isn't gone, at least that they should not be charging carbon tax on those producers that are having to deal with issues all over, or having to sell their product all over the world.
Okay, and obviously, Grant, healthcare concerns continue to be a huge, one of the biggest, I think, that we're hearing, one of those biggest issues among Albertans. So I'd like to maybe chat about this for a minute. So the NDP is suggesting that a UCP government would mean people would have to pay out of pocket to see a doctor. So can you maybe address this?
Sure. It's unfortunate the NDP are actually stooping to that kind of campaign. Um, we will not ever be charging Albertans to go to see their doctor. That will not happen. It's against the law to do that. Our Premier Smith has just signed a $24 billion agreement with the federal government in terms of health transfers back into Alberta, 10-year agreement, reaffirming our commitment to the Canada Health Act, which says that you cannot do that. And it's unfortunate the NDP are stooping to this kind of a level in order to try to win an election. It scares our seniors. It scares people who are so reliant on the healthcare system. And unfortunately, that's what they've been doing. So no, that's not going to happen. We have spent $2 billion since 2019 on our healthcare system, an extra $2 billion on our healthcare system, adding another 6,000 Alberta Health Services workers, over 700 new physicians, 1,800 new RNs, an extra 300 paramedics. So this is the sort of thing that you need to do. to be able to make sure that the healthcare system is robust and it's timely and good healthcare for Albertans.
And like you were saying, of course, there's those countless negative ads out there that the NDP are producing against UCP, and they seem to be replaying these small sound bites of Danielle Smith during her podcast days, talking about that particular subject, right? So, do you feel that this is all? Do you think that it's being taken out of context? Or how is the party sort of responding to these ads?
Yeah, certainly it's taken out of context. From what I understand, well, first of all, Danielle Smith was a talk show host. And so they are, talk show hosts are provocative. They want to be able to address issues that maybe are provocative. And so they talk about issues like this. But in this situation, from what I understand, she was talking about health spending accounts and how those health spending accounts would be able to actually address some of the concerns that people can't normally get with a universal healthcare system.
Oh, interesting. That's good. Thank you for clearing that up then. Okay, so staying on healthcare for a moment, there's been some big announcements here in Lethbridge regarding the Chinook Hospital and the new cath lab. But one concern is that primary care in rural Alberta, like where you are, doesn't have enough staffing. So any idea on how to improve this situation, Grant?
Well, so in rural Alberta, it is tough to be able to keep doctors, and that's one of the problems that we face. I know that down in Milk River that we've faced some major issues trying to be able to keep doctors there. But there's innovation within our Alberta Health Services, and the innovation that we've been able to apply there in Milk River is rather than doing a fee for service. Where doctors do a fee for service in Milk River, they're actually going to do what's called an ARP, which is done in Tabor. And so basically the doctor, whether they see 5 people or 50 people, they're going to be paid the same amount. So we're going to have 2 doctors out there. They're going to be on contract, and they're not going to worry about having to see a large amount of people to be able to actually make their payroll. And to be able to earn their money. So that's going to actually help out in the Milk River area. But the other thing that we've done is a couple of years ago, we actually added a new stream, a $10 million stream specifically for rural Albertans that want to become doctors. Because we know one thing, that if they're from rural Alberta, they're more than likely willing to go back to rural Alberta. They'll have uncles and aunts and family members back in rural Alberta. And so we think that that's probably the best long-term fix that we can do to be able to help increase the amount of doctors in rural Alberta.
Yeah, 100%. And of course, that is one of the biggest complaints that we're hearing is having that shortage of doctors and the wait time for surgery, for medical tests, all of that. And I'm sure that the UCP also has a unique perspective on that, just even province-wide.
Sure. And look, in terms of the wait time on medical tests, that is something that we're working on. These sorts of things do happen. And I think that what Danielle Smith did, Premier Smith did in terms of being able to bring in Dr. Cowell, who's the administrator now for Alberta Health Services, is we've actually seen things move fairly quickly in terms of fixing things. Dr. Cowell, in the work that he's done in terms of being able to decrease the time in surgical wait times, because of the work that he's doing in terms of being able to utilize more OR spaces throughout the province and being able to bring on chartered surgical facilities, which are run by surgeons and owned by surgeons. This has actually helped decrease that wait list by 3,000 per month. So we're within months of being able to decrease that wait list that we've been seeing, that persistent wait list that we've been seeing over the last, since COVID.
Okay, wow, interesting. Okay, and of course, Grant, the UCP has been getting a fair bit of negative media coverage on the topic of education as well as healthcare. So do we need more teachers in schools? Is the curriculum appropriate, and will the rights of parents be respected? What's going on there?
We've tried to have the balance of being able to make sure that the rights of parents are respected. The United Conservative government has, I think, done more for helping to keep that parental part of education, as we know. It's even in the Declaration, UN Declaration of Human Rights, that parents have a right to be able to decide what education their children have. And we have certainly, in fact, we changed the preamble of one of our bills to be able to state that parents do have that right to be able to decide what kind of education their children have. So we have a plethora of different options for parents to be able to educate their children in Alberta, and we're actually proud of that. And we think that actually helps all of our education system. And our public education system, they do an amazing job. I started out as a teacher. My first job when I graduated was as a teacher for a couple of years, and I recognized that they have to wear many hats. And so I take my hat off to teachers for the amazing job that they do to be able to help our children, especially during COVID. It was tough for them not being able to go to school. And so there was some real deficiencies there, but we also tried to address that, where we provided extra funding for school boards to be able to actually help the kids increase their learning.
Okay, so you were a teacher, so you have a unique perspective there, and I agree with you. Hats off to teachers 100%. What a hard job that is, certainly, especially during COVID. And I feel for the kids, too, as well, going through all of this. But do you think that we need more teachers? I feel like there's a lot of overcrowding in the classrooms, and especially with new people coming into the province. And I feel like maybe the amount of teachers isn't increasing compared to the amount of kids. That ratio is sort of off.
I wouldn't say so. I would say that we actually do have, first of all, it's a good problem to have people starting to move into your province
Definitely,
again.
yeah.
Remember that during the NDP's 4 years, there was 13 quarters where we had net migration out of the province.
Okay.
Because we brought back the Alberta Advantage, we've actually been able to see that net migration coming into the province again.
Oh.
So we're adding in the last couple of years, we've added like the size of Lethbridge to the population of Alberta. And so with that, we're going to need to build more hospitals, more schools, hire more teachers, hire more doctors, hire more nurses. Those are good problems to have, but we certainly have the budget to be able to do that. Because we've balanced the budget, we now have the ability to be able to actually do the expansion, not on the backs of our children and grandchildren by adding debt. And that's something that I think that Albertans need to remember is that when the NDP were in, they added $70 billion of debt onto Albertans' backs, our children and grandchildren's backs. That's more than all of the premiers and all of the governments prior to the NDP. Just to put that in perspective.
Right, right. And then, of course, when I talk to people from the NDP, they say that they inherited it.
Actually, they didn't inherit any. We had no debt. In fact, not only that, I sat on Treasury Board for 3.5 years, so I know the numbers. We also saw that they burned through about $12 billion of the rainy day fund that was there as well. They did never say that to anybody. So not only the $70 billion they added in debt, there's about $12 billion as well that they burnt through, which was that rainy day fund that Ralph Klein put together.
Wow. Okay. On the taxation front, what are the UCP plans for that? Are taxes on the way up, on the way down? Are they staying the same?
Yeah, we actually, first announcement that the Premier made was to decrease taxes. It's always a good thing when we can actually have people keep more money in their own pockets. So it's a reduction. So it's actually changing the tax structure from 10% to 8%. So we're adding a new tax bracket to 8%. So anybody making $60,000 or less, there will be an 8% tax on that. Now, the nice thing about that is that those people are going to be able to save about 20% on their tax bill. But everybody else will also save because as you know, you get taxed on that first $60,000 X amount of dollars, and it will be at the 8% tax bracket. So everybody is going to save about $760 on their taxes. So you know what? These are the little things that we're trying to do to be able to help with that affordability issue, because it has really affected people. And I think that it really matters when we can keep more money in the pockets of people.
Yeah, I do remember that big announcement on right after the writ dropped, of course, and also I think there was a fuel tax holiday as well that she was giving.
Yeah, which is great. We've had that for some time now. 13 cents that is normally added to the provincial tax on a liter of gas. We took that off, and we are continuing to keep that off. It would be great if the federal government would take off the 14 cents that they have on there with the carbon tax. I think that would really help not just Albertans, but all Canadians. And we've asked them to do that, but they refuse to do it.
It looks like we are about out of time here, but thanks so much for being with us today, Grant.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Appreciate having you on. Grant Hunter is the incumbent UCP candidate for Tabor Warner.